Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wowhead Weekly number 229. This week, there was not a show earlier on. It's our first show this week, our only show this week. We are back to being Wowhead Weekly. We have
Yep.
some updates to share with you guys, including some Covenant sets that were not previously data mined. So there's some new things to see, and also some interviews to cover. Before we get into that, though, let me first introduce myself. I am Annie, or also known as Annie Fuchsia. I'm a full time streamer on Twitch and one of your two weekly Wowhead hosts. The number two, or number one for me, is Park. Let's move over the scene to her. There we go.
Hey everyone, I'm Perk. I run Wowhead. Sometimes I have another co-host here, my cat Brightpaw, but he ran off right
True.
before the show. And yeah, we've had another fun alpha week with lots of fun Covenant transmog sets, a very interesting interview with Ian, where he confirmed some data mine things. We have a cat. Hello, cat. How
Ah,
are you?
the co host is
And
here.
yes, now this is our third co-host, my cat.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we even had some interesting ruminations on the social experiences in early WoW from former Blizzard employees Mike Morheim and Greg Street Ghostcrawler.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't we get into it, starting with the interview with Ian that took place on Tuesday.
Yes. And in case people missed this interview was taking place on a stream. Again, this is the third interview, correct? On a stream.
The fourth one actually, we had
Fourth, even.
Sloot,
Mm-hmm.
T&E, Towley, and now this was on a Zoltan stream with Cinder doing the translation and asking the questions.
Awesome. It's so good to see these devs and people coming in to the Twitch channels, having these live interviews like that. I think it just makes me so happy. But yeah, let's go into the details of what was talked about.
Yeah, so they asked a few questions about all different aspects of the game, and what I thought was really cool is that they had a lot of visual assets up as they were talking. So when they talked about the jailer, they would have
Mm-hmm.
the Wowhead data mined model up, so people that maybe weren't following the alpha every day could see the image and get hype and get some more context as to what they were talking about.
I noticed that
Uh,
they were using the Wowhead stuff, right?
yeah, that was really awesome to see. And I also
Mm-hmm.
just thought in general that I remember data mining used to be really taboo and the devs would just not respond to anything or they'd say, oh, it could be, wrong, whatever. But
Uh-huh.
now I thought it was cool how they were using it as a hype experience and Ian was kind of leaning into that and being like, oh yeah, that character is that model is going to be used on a famous character or
Mm-hmm.
let me explain why this data mining was confusing with the eye color as opposed to being like I can't comment on this. So I just
Yeah,
thought it
yeah,
was
yeah. That's
it feels
awesome.
like them embracing both the streamers, doing the stuff on the streams and talking casually about the data mining just feels very I don't know, positive and down to earth and not,
Yeah.
all buttoned up and formal. So I just thought that was cool.
That's a good point. Like the focus on the streaming platforms and or not focus, but the use of the streaming platforms and the openness to data mining and
Right.
using it as an actual source of where people do find news. Well, not news, but hints of what is to come
Yeah.
potentially. So that's awesome.
Yeah. So it was about an hour-long interview. We've got a live blog on Wowhead. I was doing the live tweets. Squishy was doing the blog post.
Mm-hmm.
And there's lots of topics, but just to run down some of the highlights, Shadowlands is still planned to release in 2020, which was a growing concern because of, so many things being
Things being
canceled
delayed.
due to
Mm-hmm.
the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And Ian explained that they had a very good system in place to transition working from home and they lost a little bit of time adjusting, maybe a week, but there's still everyone is working very smoothly now. So the plan is still to release in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, the alpha still looks very incomplete. There's no legendaries. The zones are
Mm-hmm.
mostly locked. But the plan still is to have something for 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, that's
that
always
seems to
interesting
be good
because we were
news.
wondering as well, since the alpha felt like it was taking forever to get started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We were wondering whether that was due to the delays due to the pandemic, or if that was the planned dates. But so it's good to know that we may potentially have looked at a week's delay of work, but shouldn't be affecting the expansion. So that's interesting.
Yeah. A hot one of the hot topics was the covenant swapping, which was
Mm-hmm.
interesting because with Sloot, they're like, "Oh, we don't know, like ideally you won't swap your covenant." And now in this interview, it was if you don't like the one you're in, you can swap to a different one, but swapping back to the first one is going to be difficult.
Yeah,
So
that's
I feel like they've
interesting.
they've moved the goalpost on these from, never swapping or we don't know
Right?
to
We're
and
getting
so
closer to the goal.
yeah, but I still feel that, if someone is gonna do like trying for rating, they may want to suddenly swap back to a covenant, or like maybe with a different patch, if like there's legendaries for your class and certain covenant powers is better, people are still
Mm-hmm.
going to want to swap back. So
Yeah.
maybe they could have like um there's a harsh penalty, but like a decay period to where if you like you could swap back like, every like month or so easily, or like at the start of a patch you could play around, based on your class buffs and nerfs, but you can't swap every day.
Yeah.
But
That.
they also were
Mm-hmm.
talking about like they designed Azerite, power cost to be prohibitive, so people wouldn't do that, but people ended up still doing that, and then made the cost into a grind, like a gold grind. So they're
Yeah.
mindful that they can tell people we don't want you to do this, but if people can, they probably will. So I don't know. Maybe by the next Ian interview, we'll hear something else.
Went from no swapping to swapping one way.
Yeah. So that's progress.
Mm-hmm. Maybe the other way around soon enough. There's still that Twitter account. Make Covenant
Yes.
swappable.
Yep.
Support. No, but that's going to be interesting because I guess from a sort of cosmetic vanity point of view, this is a complete fix because it means you can go from one covenant to another, unlock and buy everything, and then you kind of have any type of transmog that might be available to each
I
covenant.
wonder if you could use that though if you're not a member of that covenant. Like when
Potentially
you swap from
not.
Alliance
Yeah.
to Horde, you
Mm-hmm.
can't, use
True.
the Horde
Mm-hmm.
Warfront set.
True. But you still have it on your account, right? So you could
Right.
potentially use it on a different character, or if you'd swap back later, you don't have to
Hmm.
repurchase it. Uh,
Right.
so it's somewhat of a fix, I guess, for that. But you're right. I mean, between patches, there might be something that makes a decision or choice between the covenants completely different because maybe something was buffed or nerfed, or certain legendary was not announced early enough for somebody to make a decision, and then they want to swap it, but then something else happened, and then they want to swap it back. Yeah, I think we will see some more solutions to swapping it back as well, but it's okay. One step there, halfway
Yeah.
there.
They did talk about soulbinds a little bit, and they sort of
Okay.
clarified that every covenant, like when you choose a covenant, you get two characters you can soulbind with, and if you do the campaign, you get a third. So I feel like that system is at least kind of like contained, because I think at first everyone was like, "Oh my god, like there's gonna be like billions of characters I can soul bind with, and like all these combinations of things. How are they going to balance it?" So I think by keeping it to two or three, that hopefully one covenant won't run away with overpowered abilities
Mm-hmm.
nobody checked, because there were so many of them
Mm-hmm.
to set up and organize.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I
but
see.
in different news, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Um. Hmm. Okay, okay, okay. Soon in different news, I just wanted to comment somebody in the chat who says, I do hope we can unlock Covenant transmogs on one character and use on another. That would be cool, but I'm kind of thinking they might be restricted. I was going to say that not many transmogs are actually character specific. There are some, such as. Actually, no, not even. Yeah, they are. The challenge mode sets, right? I think they're character specific.
Yeah, I think those are.
But for the most
Um,
part, things are or tend to be like class specific potentially. Um, but
there's
they're
also the
not.
gladiator rounds, which they discussed as being, character specific, and maybe they should revisit that philosophy in the future.
Did they say
So
that
yeah, that came up.
during this interview?
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. Cool.
So
Mm-hmm. But yeah, now we can jump into the different news.
yeah. So the data mined picture that was called Maw Jailer is confirmed not just to be a jailer, but the jailer of
Yep,
Shadowlands. So
the
that
one.
badass model with his kind of, gray looking Lich King belt and spikes and hold where his heart should be is the, main driving antagonistic force of Shadowlands.
Yep.
And you might be thinking, hey, he looked kind of different in that trailer we saw at BlizzCon. And at that point, his model wasn't yet finalized. So that's why they just put him in shadows because they didn't really know what he was going to turn out to be. And then as you can see, his model ended up looking a bit different. Still sort of towering over Sylvanas, but a bit less Titan in his appearance. Like originally the crown kind of looked, I think, like Amandul's crown, and now it looks more Lich King death themed.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he looks very cool. Um and it also fits with Sylvanas's new armor because now when we see those side by side, it makes sense why her armor has changed because her armor kind of matches his now. Instead of looking like the Warchief armor, hers is all gray with similar spikes, kind of like she's joined the Maw Covenant and this is her Covenant armor set.
Yep. They actually look very pretty together.
Yeah. We're like, yeah, they coordinate very well.
Yeah, they
So
do.
I wonder if characters can get a Maw set at some point, like I don't know,
Oh,
like we
yeah.
survived the Maw so many times as we farm for Torghast that eventually we like steal, armor from Torghast and we can wear it for ourselves because the spikes look really badass.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really curious about the hole in his heart because now that we know that this is the jailer, we know that the Arbiter has a similar cavity in her chest, and it's filled with this glowing thing. So you have to wonder, why does he have nothing and then she has something? Did she steal something
Mm.
from the jailer? Like, is
Mm-hmm.
he broken because he doesn't have something in his body?
Can it be returned?
Right. Did someone steal it? So
Yoink.
that, yep. We're gonna loot his heart as like the final boss in Shadowlands.
We have a comment here. Has the jailer overall size also um, shrunk?
So we've got some pictures at the very hold on one second.
Mm-hmm. The question goes, how come that one picture of the jailer, he was 150 meters tall, and now he is 1/3 of Nazoth?
Oh, so one sec. So
Mm-hmm.
they've been changing him every build,
Mm-hmm.
or so, and he was gigantic, and then he was tiny, and now he's let's see. If you want to scroll to the bottom, Annie, there's pictures there. So basically, he was gigantic, then he was tiny, and now he's medium sized. But next to Sylvanas, he's still very tall, like similar proportions to that Shadowlands cinematic where she's like very small and looking up at him.
Mm-mm-mm-mm. Oh, okay, these pictures here. Okay, so these are all the different ones, yes?
Yeah, so these are the most current ones. So you can see that, yes, he's small next to N'Zoth, which makes sense because N'Zoth is like an old god, but he is still enormous next to a human.
Okay, let me get some of these pictures here so I can show you guys. So here he is next to Sylvanas. There we go.
Yep. He's probably not a Titan though, because like he's smaller than the rest of them. So I don't know if he actually is a Titan, if he's the wrong size. But he is pretty huge next to Sylvanas.
He is, yes. And here he is with the Titans. If I can get the size right. I can't get the size right. Let's see. Let's reset this. Okay, we go back to this. There we go. All right, now I got the size right. There they are, all standing together. And he is like 1/3 of their size.
Yeah.
And last but not least, next to N'Zoth.
Yep. So that's the current size. Of course, it could be subject to change again. But it seems like he's going to be smaller than some of the villains of Azeroth, but still pretty big in general.
Good questions.
So we've got some legendary news as well. You can only equip one legendary at a time in Shadowlands. And people are asking about those items called the Maw Raid Set. And Ian said that at the start of the expansion, those are the armor models that are going to be on the legendaries that you can equip. So you won't be able to collect a full set, but if you have like, a helm, it will have that appearance from the Maw Raid Set. But he didn't confirm this outright, but I think that the Maw is going to be a raid because he was like, you can't get the full armor set in 9.0, but you will over the course of the expansion. So to me, I think it will be the same appearance as whatever we get from the actual Maw raid.
Yeah,
I think that's how it's going to turn out.
Without hinting it too much.
Yeah. And this was going back to the data mining. I thought it was cool how people discussed, there is potentially an option for blue-eyed blood elves. Why is this happening? Why can't Alliance get void elves? And Ian explained that, with the data mining, you can see like all the potential options, including things that are just used on NPCs, but the blue-eyed option is not going to be available to actual blood elf playable characters.
Yeah. It's more for NPCs.
Yeah. So,
which I guess could still potentially change, but for now it was clarified.
Yeah. So that was pretty cool. I'm seeing if there are more things in the interview. Some other, just looking at it quickly, I think they were saying that, leveling is meant to be faster than BFA, but maybe 7 hours is too fast for the average player, although if you're like a professional player, you're probably going to, do it faster than the average player. They said that the allied races won't have customizations for Shadowlands launch, but that they view it as an ongoing project and it's not done, so maybe in a few patches we could get it, which was interesting because the allied races were billed as this amazing customization, but now when we see what the main races get, something like the Nightborn with 3 skin tones is not really as exciting. As mentioned, they talked about maybe making gladiator mounts and titles account wide, like not in the immediate future, but maybe it's worth another relook. And they didn't say what was. Oh yeah, no plans to bring WoW to console, but they added some options to help support it for people that have accessibility, demands. And I thought this was interesting. Who won Battle for Azeroth? And it was basically like nobody knew who won because the Alliance and Horde both didn't win. They had the peace treaty. The people that were loyal to Sylvanas lost because she abandoned them. But did Sylvanas actually lose because she, got all this power and has ascended into the Shadowlands.
Mm-hmm.
So
She got
it's
away.
something that people will keep debating.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, I thought it was a great interview, and I'd love to keep seeing more of these stream interviews with a variety of developers and personalities.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Very
So,
nice to see those happening.
yeah. So
And
now we're gonna
yeah,
move into, yeah, customization
jump
options.
into some
As
customization.
usual, so nice to see these every build.
Mm-hmm. This is
So,
what Savannah's been working on a lot. Okay, let's start with
so
some human eye color. So apparently we have some additional options for humans, and I believe it was it even a update on the UI itself?
yeah, so you can actually change your eye color separately from your face color on the beta now. And they updated the UI, so instead of just sliding things back and forth to see the options, there's also a drop-down menu so you can see all the options and their names at once, and then you can select the name you want,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is super nice.
Very convenient. So much nicer.
Yeah. So there are like I think 24 eye options you can choose between, including some blind eyes, and that's neat because the not available to test yet, but data mine there are faces with different scars, so you could pair like the blind eye with the
True.
scar and have it look kind of realistic.
Yes. If you have a slash across an eye, then that eye should probably be blind.
Yeah. So this isn't just the only customization option coming. In the past, we've also talked about more skin tones, new hairstyles. Human males have different beards and facial hair, and human females have more necklace and earring options. And necklaces were very exciting because that was one of our April Fool's jokes.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
And more eyes
um,
brings us to the new Death Knight Eye Glow.
yeah. So the Death Knights already got an eye glow update in 8.3
Mm-hmm.
when uh they were revamped to look more like Bolvar's eye glow because if you pre-purchase Shadowlands you could get a Death Knight allied race. And they've changed how the glow works. It may not be obvious at first, but when you look closer you see that there's more like fidelity on either side. It's not just like one line or two, it's like a bulk of smoke. And I think it's neat that they keep updating this. So far, this is only on humans and Forsaken, but I assume that they would be added to other races
Mm-hmm.
because,
Would only make
yeah,
sense.
yeah, it looks more naturalistic to like before the smoke would have like a thin like solid line, so it would kind of warp your eye
Mm-hmm.
socket from the side. But now this is more diffused smoke.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, looks pretty neat.
Indeed. We have some more updates, or can't really call these updates. We have some new eye colors for Forsaken and Humans, which has not been confirmed.
Yeah, so some of these eye colors are pretty wild, and we think that maybe they are tied to NPCs. Um, like for example, the golden eyes could be, Bolvar. But basically, we know the Blizzard updated some eye textures, including the golden one used for the Forsaken, and some other ones. So one could logically be like, oh, the other eye colors updated in this batch or could also be used by Forsaken. But, they're like purple and orange and green,
Mm-hmm.
which is a bit out there. But these exist now. Maybe some player characters will use them. So we made a post just highlighting this, and the eye colors also work well on humans and don't work so well on the other races.
Mm-hmm. They look so cool on humans, actually. Too cool to be true. I
Yeah,
don't think these will be usable by us.
yeah. I mean, they almost seem like Death Knight or like some sort of, I don't know, like character we might find in the Maw.
Mm-hmm.
Like kind of like a natural magic
Mm-hmm.
based on these eye colors. Would be interesting. I think the green would be really interesting, like especially if I don't like a Draenei had it because of the Fel and Legion story. But
Mm.
yeah, I think that they just look pretty neat. The
Mm-hmm.
pink would also be fun because the Forsaken get a pink hair option in Shadowlands, so you can have like purple eyes and pink hair.
True. Yep.
Yep. But yeah, that's all speculation. We don't want to say it's coming and then
Yep.
have another like blood elf blue eye confirmed controversy.
Yep. The Forsaken and human eyes with the very cool colors is nothing that's confirmed. Just some speculation to show you guys.
Yep.
And
So
yep,
we've got
you can go
some
ahead.
other controversy that was diffused, moving on from character
Yes.
customization.
Mm-hmm.
Also with some horde races.
Yes. So we talked about this last week. I believe it was last week,
Yeah.
where there were updates on the descriptions specifically for the horde races that felt a bit off, felt a bit like they were changing the sort of nature and point or
Mm-hmm.
goal of the races. And apparently, there's been an update, specifically a tweet here, if I can get it forward.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's gone missing.
Do
You
you
can
want me
talk
to
about it
link it? It's in the
as I
post.
get it.
Yeah, so it's a this was a post by lead narrative designer Steve Denuser who said to clarify the horde race descriptions that were data mined were for content not yet playable. They were placeholders and had not been vetted. I agree that the tone is off, particularly in the Forsaken entry. This was not an intended change of perspective for the race.
There it is. And it's
And
interesting to hear this because we were talking about it so recently and
mhm,
saying how it did feel off. So it's kind of nice to hear that they confirmed that too.
yep. For example, I'm seeing in there, as one of the undead Forsaken, you have been reanimated by dark magic. Though shunned by the living, you tirelessly strive to protect them. And people were like, you were trying to burn Talbot. Like, what do you mean you protect the living? Like your goal was to survive, not, be super noble. You were just
Mm-hmm.
trying to figure out this new strange life you were in.
Mm-hmm.
So that was changed to the undead Forsaken may be shunned by the living, but your people are determined to rise above the ruins of the past to forge a new future.
Yeah,
Which I think
sounds a
sounds
lot
a
better.
lot better because it's more about like their agency and them trying to survive and make sense of this like very unlucky, twist of fate they were dealt, as opposed to like, oh, I'm tirelessly protecting the living, even though under Sylvanas we were going to war.
Yep, indeed.
And this build updated not only the Horde races, but also the Alliance races because some of them didn't make sense. For example, the Night Elves used to talk about, left the tranquil boughs of Teldrassil, and it's like, well, that doesn't exist now. So
Mm-hmm.
they changed that to, ventured forth from the Sacred Forest instead. Some of these were more, just general changes, but the Forsaken one, I think, also stood out. Also, I think the Blood Elf sounded a bit not. I don't. It used to be your people, the Blood Elves, have persevered through tragedy and betrayal. You toil to ensure Azeroth never endures such suffering again. And like Blood Elves always have like a bit of like bite to them. Like
Mm-hmm.
like they're trying to hold on to their heritage. They struggled with the magic addiction in the Sunwell.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're very proud of their heritage, and it just you toil to ensure Azeroth never endures such suffering again just sounds very like generic hero.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but now it's though your people have endured tragedy and betrayal, the Blood Elves have reclaimed your kingdom's birthright and seek a bold new destiny, which I think fits their
Mm.
personality much better about like, holding on to Silver Moon, like reclaiming the Sunwell, being bold. Like there's just more personality in these phrases now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's actually true. It does sound a lot better that way.
Yeah. So yeah, so really cool. Again, going back to the openness with data mining, I think it's cool that like they're explaining why something was data mined without being like, oh, this was wrong, and
Yeah,
being like,
because they
yeah,
don't even have to
like
comment that. Mm-hmm.
right, and they're like, yeah, like this was placeholder and we're updating it. because they didn't have to do that, but now it makes sense. And I think that if they updated it without making the tweet or saying anything, people would be like, why was this changed? Where is this? But now it's like this really cool feedback loop where they're like, yeah, we heard the feedback, this didn't make sense, this is where the content goes, it's not yet released yet, and it's being updated. I just think having that extra context makes things go a lot better.
I agree. It's a very nice line of thread.
Yeah.
We got some more visuals to show you guys.
Yeah, so this wasn't added in the most recent build, but it seemed like a good rainy day post when there wasn't, like, Torghast going on, but people were, no, Brightpaw, no.
Uh-oh.
He knocked something over, Brightpaw. So, oh god, that was really loud. I'm sorry.
It wasn't too bad.
Okay, anyway, he knocked this over. It's like a mini chalkboard.
Wait, what is that? A what? A chalkboard?
It's like, yes, you can like just write something here.
Oh, cool.
With like colored chalk.
I thought it was a mirror. That looks cool.
Brightpaw. Come on, baby. Come on, my little one. Okay, he doesn't want to come here.
Chalkboard.
Yeah. No, you can't knock it over again, Brightpaw. No. Now he's headbutting the mic. Yep. If I have mic issues, I'm gonna blame the cat.
It's okay.
Hold on.
I'm used to it.
He's just like rubbing his head against this mic.
Oh.
A little back scratcher.
Yeah.
Where were we?
So we have these very pretty updates on Stormwind and Orgrimmar.
Yeah, so we were saying that
area. Yeah.
This wasn't like added this build and we thought it was just like, oh, it's a cool update, but it was super popular when we posted about it, so I thought it was worth, bringing up on the show. And yeah, so the class areas got updated. Blizzard confirmed in the interview that this was it for Shadowlands, really, that they weren't planning on updating more of the zones, although maybe in a future expansion they would update other parts of the capital city. But I think so far they look pretty nice. The one question I have, though, is that the Maghar Orc area kind of got repurposed into the class hall, the class trainer area, so that's a little sad for them. But I think the Druid, I really like the Horror Druid thing that has the swirl with the greenery behind it. I think that looks really neat. I think that's my favorite one.
I also like the Lion's Monk one.
Yeah, that looks cool in the corner. I think how he's like in the Zen pose.
And we have some of these shots on the Horde one with art hung on the walls.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
I think that's fun. Like, normally you don't think that, like, Horde has a lot of art in Orgrimmar, but I like how there's some culture being added, random paintings on the wall. No,
mages here.
Oh, you muted me. No. Why am I muted?
Yeah, pretty neat to have these small updates here and there to just
I think he
freshen
me.
things
One
up.
Second.
No, you're good. Oh, maybe she can't hear me.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Brightpaw. What did you do?
Okay, wait, I need to tell her that I can hear her.
Can't hear you. Brightpaw, what did you do? You did something.
There we go.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Okay. All right. I can't hear you.
You can or you can't?
Brightpaw, you did something. Why did you do something?
Okay, her camera just went off as well.
What have you done? Did you unplug my headset? I can't hear anyone.
It's okay. We wanted to enjoy these pictures, right? We still have more classes to show. Going through the Horde.
Maybe I should just reconnect if he created issues.
Okay, let me try to reconnect with her.
Brightpaw, why did you do this? Okay, I'm gonna reconnect. Sorry about that.
Okay, let's join.
Testing.
Okay, nice. Yes, can you hear me?
Brightpaw?
No? Oh no, she still can't hear me. We can hear and see you.
I can't hear anyone. I can't hear a single thing. What did you do?
Volume button on headset. Maybe?
No, it's
Talking?
he
1, 2,
just.
3.
Let
No?
me unplug this.
Can't hear me. Alright, chat. I think we've gone a good round around the
Okay.
pictures for Orgrimmar. Let's check out Alliance again. Now that is some fine art, right? Those arts were
just
great.
like destroyed my settings.
Let's see. Check sound settings. Bottom right. Wait, now she's muted completely. You're muted now.
He's.
Oh, never mind.
Okay. Right paw. Maybe I should just restart my computer because he definitely changed some sound settings on me before I moved him off the keyboard. Right paw. No. Oh my god. Sorry for the cat intermission, everyone.
It's alright, it happens. Let me get a
I'm
temporary picture
going to
for
restart.
Her. So yeah, we'll let her restart.
Sorry, everyone. Be right back.
Let's see. I'm trying to get a picture of her that we can use at least. Let's see. This one maybe? No. Okay, we'll do it like this. All right. So we have a blank screen for Perk right now. She'll be right back. She wants to restart her computer quick because Brightpop pressed something on the keyboard and we're not entirely sure what he pressed, but something makes it not possible for her to hear us. So that's why she's gone. So it's just you and me. Just you and me right now. I don't really want to jump into the next things without Perk around, so maybe if we should take some more rounds of the Stormwind and Orgrimmar updates, or you know what? We can start showing the next ones. I think that should be okay. And Perk will probably be here to comment them as well. Oh, she's calling already, I think? No, she isn't.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, hi. You can hear me now?
Yeah.
Nice. I can't see you yet. Seems like you're not sharing camera yet. And she's gone. Oh no, there she is. Maybe.
Yeah, there I am.
Hi.
So, blame the cat.
No, wait, that's the wrong one. Perk. There we go. Awesome. Yes. We called it before. We did say Briarpaw might do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So sorry
Perk
about that. He
from out of
destroyed
the
my sound.
Yeah. Well, Perk is a rogue now. Wait, is that camera delay? Yeah. Say something.
Testing. Yeah, I hear some delay.
Yeah, there is some delay. I think that's why. Wait, let me go here. Stormwind and Orgrimmar. There you go, guys. Enjoy more of those as I quickly double check my Discord settings. Let's try this. Okay, you wanna say something?
Testing. 1, 2, 3.
Perfect. Okay, let's make
awesome.
this
Sorry
screen.
about that.
No worries. Tech issues happen.
Yep. Why did you do this?
I think you're a bit lower now, though. Maybe.
Huh.
Or maybe it's fine.
Let me just make sure user settings. Is this better?
Yes, it is.
I put in. Okay. Yes, he reduced the input volume as well.
Gotcha.
Like he didn't turn it totally off, but I don't know. I don't know how he just muted me. Maybe he just smashed a bunch of buttons at once and disabled sound.
Yep. He used shortcuts.
Yep.
But yeah, I think this is a good time to jump into the next images. since we have
Yeah.
looked at Stormwind and Orgrimmar for quite some time now. The next set of pictures we have are some Covenant armor sets that had not been data mined before. So
Yeah.
these are pretty new.
Yeah, so previously we had like maybe one tint for every set, but now we have 4 tints for every set. Um, and we have 64 tints in total. Um, and yeah, um, some of the new sets I really like are this cloth Venthyr set that looks very light and void themed. I really like it
Mm-hmm.
with the golden wings. I think that looks fun.
That was the first one that was showed right here, actually. This is the one. The Cloth
Yeah.
Ventier, Tint 3. And the other ones that were shown here
Yeah.
were, this one is Leather, Necrolord specifically. The next one that will be shown in a second is also Necrolord for Cloth. I really like this one.
Yeah, it's like very Kel'Thuzad. I think it's neat.
Yes, it does look really cool. And I like purple. And this last one is a tint for Venthyr Plate.
Yep.
So those are the new tints for us to see.
Yeah, and there are even more tints in the linked guides we made, but we just wanted to highlight these four because I thought they were the most interesting. But yeah, my favorite is definitely the vampire themed faction that has the light and dark set because that feels very disciplined priest to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it also reminds me of how like the Venthyr Covenant is like very dark and dramatic, but they try to torture their souls using the light. So it's interesting seeing the light there as well. And all these sets are in our dressing room, so you can try them out on your own character. And we don't know how to get all the tints, but maybe you can get them through like you do a basic one for unlocking the covenant, and then you get like a different tint if you finish the campaign or like unlock every soul bind, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. I will also
So
link
yeah.
this in the chat in case you guys want to check out the article and also see what other tints are now available over there.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And we have some other interesting models that we want to show you guys. Here we have a creature model of a gargoyle boss.
He looks really fun. I like him.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he just I just like love his armor and the beard and the wings are really neat.
It looks
And
really cool.
yeah, I also like how he's the stone it's like a white stone. It's not like like it's black on top of black on top of black because it makes the dark armor stand out that much more. No bright paw.
You made us restart once, right, Paul? But yeah, it does look really cool. I also like how it's a dark theme, but the color itself is light, so it makes it stand out a bit better.
Yeah, the wings look very dramatic.
Mm-hmm.
We also finally ran the Halls of Atonement dungeon on the PTR, and we just wanted to show you some pictures because it looks really beautiful for a dungeon. I feel like in BFA, maybe we're just used to them, but because the dungeons were in places that weren't always sort of like high fantasy, they felt kind of generic. Like Freehold was very brown and boats and wood. But this is like very over the top with blood red skies and dramatic halls and like very elaborate ceilings.
Mm-hmm. Got a lot of pictures here showing all the different. There's also a part that's kind of inside. Is that towards the final
That part
boss?
at the end, yeah, and it has the candles leading up kind of to the weird altar. Because it is the halls of atonement, like you are atoning for your sins. Because the event there is where you go if you're not at the Maw, but you're almost going to the Maw.
A question in the chat if there's going to be new class in Shadowlands, and as far as we know, no.
No.
No new
Just
class.
the customization options
Mm-hmm.
as the big, you know, uh, character specific thing.
Mm-hmm.
And like every class gets the covenant to choose from, which is sort of like almost a new type of racial ability that you get.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, the other dungeon and raid update is that Castle Nathria had two new bosses
Oh
added,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
and one almost might be a DDR style boss because there is this Council of Blood encounter, and there's an intermission called the Danse Macabre, and
Mm-hmm.
there all the abilities have little icons going arrows in either direction, like up, down, left, right,
Mm-hmm.
and it's all like dance themed names. So people are wondering if it's like a little like tribute to that other game.
Yep. Probably some
So
dance moves there. So if you got some to show, it's gonna be a good fight for you.
because we were all so good at Queen Ashara decrees, now we have to dance.
Queen Ashara mythic fight is actually really difficult.
Yeah.
Considering it's an old patch, because I tried to pug it and it's
Oh.
actually it's difficult and it's I don't even know if it's possible to do without the add-on for it. Very difficult to coordinate. A lot of dancing and running around in circles and yeah, soaking.
Yeah. So we wanted to talk a little about the Shadowlands pre-patch because we learned some more information about that. The first thing which made people very happy is that the restriction where you can only have one demon hunter per realm will be lifted in the Shadowlands pre-patch.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the pre-patch, the with the level squish, the demon hunters start at level 8, not level 98.
Yep. Didn't we suggest
So
that they might remove the restriction since the level won't be
yeah,
that much
so
of a
that's happening
mm-hmm.
in the pre-patch. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you can make multiple demon hunters on realms then in the patch.
Mm-hmm. Which currently people may have wanted to do because it's so high level. It makes things easier, such as farming for Love Rocket
Mm-hmm.
during Love in the Air days. But the Demon Hunter will start at a much lower level. So even though you can make more Demon Hunters, you probably won't at that point.
Right. We also learned a little bit from that same Ian interview what the story of the pre-patch will entail. And one part is that it's covering the aftermath of the Shadowlands cinematic, what happens when the helm breaks and all the undead that were controlled by the helm now are running around free. So it's about Icecrown and how we deal with that assault. And then also, Ian mentioned something about Nathanos, how there's many different people trying to track him down, and we know he plays a role in the Shadowlands prequel novel as well. So remember, we data mined that kind of mysterious boss encounter for Nathanos, so I don't know if he's going to be like if we encounter him in the pre-patch and maybe he's like a world boss we fight and probably escapes because hey, he's like invincible.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so the pre-patch will cover Icecrown as well as some story with Nathanos.
Yep. That's going to be interesting to see. I want to know more about whether Nathanos will be a boss or not.
I know.
That's going to
It's
be
like he
interesting.
just feels invincible. Like he just like
Mm-hmm.
I know obviously Sylvanas is because she is now powering up, but he seems very powerful for a mortal as well, unless she's been like feeding him some of the anima or like
Mm-hmm.
siphoning some powers because she's trying to protect him.
Mm-hmm. Going to be
um,
interesting to hear more about that.
and though we'll talk about the pre-patch, we also made a guide about what to do before Shadowlands, because as usual, some things are going away or being changed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and for example, you should get your Battle for Azeroth Elite PvP set. You should try to get ahead of the curve.
Mm-hmm.
You should get your Season 4 Mythic Plus mount.
Mm-hmm.
Some stuff might not be going away in the pre-patch, but at launch you probably can't get the Uncorrupted Voidwing.
Yep.
Or the Caravan Brutosaur to get that special achievement for purchasing it during BFA.
Mm-hmm.
Because then in Shadowlands, it's removed from the vendor and then goes on to the black market auction house.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just like a bunch of stuff that you can still do, but it's harder to do. Like, how will island expeditions work? How will you find enough people, to do a war front? Stuff like that.
Oh, yes, Warfront is also a very good point, actually. So if you
And
have
yes,
some
everyone,
Warfront achievements, you should get them done now.
yeah, or like the transmog that you want from the war fronts.
In transmogs,
Um,
yes, true.
yeah. And then, of course, like the mythic mounts have their drop rate nerfed in the actual Shadowlands patch. Anything world PvP is probably harder to do because there's less people around, like Servant of N'Zoth or the Conqueror of Azeroth meta. Um,
Oh, mm-hmm.
and yeah, and like you were saying before, you probably want to do get your demon death knights and demon. You want to create the death knight and demon hunter now, because they'll start at level 55 or level 98.
Yep,
And then when Shadowlands do the level conversion, those classes,
we'll keep their level.
level 98 will be converted to something pretty high as opposed to making it in the pre-patch and starting at level 8.
Yep. So,
So,
yep.
just like start them now, do a few quests, keep them at that high level so you're not it's not difficult to level in Shadowlands, but they'll start at higher level if you make them now.
Mm-hmm. Especially Death Knights, because you can create Death Knights on any server. There's no restriction.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas for Demon Hunters, you may need a level 60 or 70 character on that server in order to create one. But Death Knights you can make on any server, and if you want to, you can create multiple of them, especially for allied races purposes. If you want to unlock some of those heritage armors by leveling them, you may want to create a Death Knight of the allied race that you're interested in so that you can start at that higher level. Because as soon as Shadowlands Pre Patch hits, any newly created Death Knights will be level 8 of the new system, which might be, I don't know, level 20 or something of today's levels.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Create the Death Knights now, even if you don't plan to level them now, just to have that level if you want to.
Yeah.
Yep.
And also Winds of Wisdom is good if you want to play alts on either faction. So if you're working on achievements that require you to have both factions, like 2 sides to every tail, which gives you the mounts, take advantage of that buff now. And yeah, if you're totally bored, you could work on Legion things because everyone loves Legion. So, you could quickly make alts and do things like Balance of Power or the Class Hall campaign, which people keep talking about because, Ian's like, oh yeah, we like the Class Hall campaign. That's how we're going to do the Covenant campaign. Or I feel like the Covenant tints will be very similar to the Artifact tints.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think just a bunch of stuff you can do, but we have even more things you can do in our dedicated guide.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
So we're going to wrap the show up with some Blizzard related news. First a heartwarming thing, and then more of a kind of interesting discussion point.
Mm-hmm.
So Blizzard, I don't know if they celebrate this in Sweden, but there's Take Your Child to Work Day. And with the pandemic, that's been at home, obviously, but Blizzard still made some activities to get into the spirit of that. And they had like some art tutorials, they had some like lectures, presentations, and the part that was really cool was that they had Chris Metzen read from his Warcraft themed children's book, Snowfight: A Warcraft Tale. So I thought we could just like listen to maybe a little bit of that if we could pull
Mm-hmm.
that video up. And yeah, I thought that was really nice for Blizzard to do to try to get the family still into the spirit of that event.
Mm-hmm. I do not think we have that in Sweden, at least not that I ever experienced. And I'm not sure if people have it in Europe in general. But that's
Yeah,
really
it's
interesting, and that's really
definitely
sweet that
yeah.
Blizzard did something for that. So,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
definitely a US thing.
let's listen to Chris Metzen. Oh, apparently, it might be a thing, but not very common. Okay,
Okay.
gotcha. All right, let's have a listen.
Hello, young ones. My name is Chris, and today I'm going to be reading a book called Snow Fight. This book was written by a super old dude and one of my very good friends, a guy named Wei Wang, who is just an amazing artist. So, let's get started. Snow Fight, a Warcraft tale. All right. Long ago, in the world of Azeroth, it was a cold day, a snowy day, when Varian and Thrall walked home. I love winter time, said Varian excitedly. I love skating and building ice forts and all the Wintervale goodies we get. I like winter too, Thrall replied thoughtfully. It's like all of nature takes a big, long nap until spring comes. I guess I never thought about it like that, said Varian. But right now, all I care about is snowball fights. Sounds fun to me, Thrall replied, but you never know who else is looking to pick a fight. Varian just shrugged. I'm not worried. I've got the fastest hard-packed snowball in the kingdom. Wow, he got rocked. Suddenly, a huge snowball smashed Varian right in the face. The two boys heard a cold voice holler, "Tremble at my power, I'm the master of icy awesomeness." And there, standing on a lumpy throne of ice, was the neighborhood bully, Arthas. Go home to mommy, Varian. You'll never beat me, Arthas yelled.
Yep.
There we go. And we're back.
Yep.
Yeah, that might have not seemed like a very smooth transition, but that was my attempt at making it as smooth as possible. It's kind of hard when I can't hear the volume or the audio, but I tried my best. Here's a link if you guys want to get back into the immersion and listen further. If you're watching from the Wowhead website, you can also find all the links to all the different things that we've talked about today within the article. And here on Twitch, I have linked it in the chat. It's very nice listening to it. And I like how he introduced it by saying it was written by a very, very old person.
Yeah.
It was funny.
It's also nice. I mean, he's retired now, but it's actually, I think, to spend more time with his family, and it's really sweet that he still volunteered to record this for Blizzard. If he retired partially for family reasons, he probably, knows, understands, values how fun these events can be for children, and it's nice that he volunteered to brighten other children that were maybe excited to go into work that couldn't to stay at home. So maybe it will inspire someone to want to do something similar with stories.
So this whole event, is it like a once a year, one day in
Yeah,
the year
like
thing?
you just bring the child into work and they
Okay,
get to
cool.
like tour the office area and like sort of shadow you, and it's like meant to make them feel special, and you learn about different jobs that way.
Okay, cool. And everyone brings the children the same day.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds
So
pretty nice.
yeah, it's interesting. Like
Very
I
wholesome.
I just assumed it was like a international thing, but I guess
Yeah.
it's not.
Maybe it's something that will get picked up sooner or later in other places too. But it's not something we had growing up, at least my generation. But maybe in the
Yeah.
newer ones, it's happening. I wouldn't know because I don't have children myself, but maybe one day we'll see.
Yeah, maybe you think your sisters have children, maybe they know about this.
Yeah, I guess I'll find out.
Yeah.
And
And
on to the
yeah.
last topic.
Yeah, on more of a discussion note, Mike Morhaime, who was the co-founder and former CEO of Blizzard Entertainment, spoke at the VentureBeat GameBeat Summit a few days ago online by Seth Scheisel of the New York Times, who is a very seasoned reporter, but also is a longtime World of Warcraft player. So they had a good dialogue on lots of different topics about the MMO genre. And the sound clip that's kind of making the rounds is about Mike Morhaime talking about how the initial popularity of WoW surprised everyone, and it's a balancing act to keep that maintained over the years, and it's like, the unique social fabric that made WoW great maybe changed as they added some accessibility options, but because, like, the world and the internet is changing, you needed those accessibility options to keep people playing as opposed to getting bored because, all their friends quit. So
Yeah.
the actual quote was, and discussing why the MMO genre is not as popular as it was at launch, he said, I think that's a question of accessibility and time investment. Maybe there are other types of games that are able to capture the social experience even more. I would also just observe that as World of Warcraft evolved over the years, it actually became less social because in an effort to achieve more accessibility, we kind of removed some of the reasons why you need to play with the same group of people over and over. I think that takes away from some of the reasons for some people of why they play and why they might want to continue to play. But that doesn't necessarily mean like accessibility is bad. Like if all your friends quit, having the tools to find new people could keep you playing. And like social systems just change so frequently nowadays that it's sort of naive to assume that the early social situation of WoW could just sort of continue indefinitely with the rise of like Discord and Twitch and Twitter. But yeah, that just was an interesting sort of thing, how maybe for the game to evolve and continue to stay, somewhat popular, they had to implement some measures that change the social landscape to still be good, but different from how it used to be.
I think it's also very interesting that other games are mentioned as well, because I think because because there's so many options today, the more boundaries and obstacles that you have to pass, the less likely you are to want to continue. So as fun as it may have been for those of us who spent more time on the social aspect in WoW, it's just not as feasible today as it was back then, because 15 years ago, World of Warcraft was so much better than most any other game that I'd ever seen.
Right.
But today, it's not really the case. There's many, many amazing games, and many different types of games too. Many online games, many free games that are amazing. Like back then, I don't think there were any games that were free except like Facebook games or something. So
Right.
it's a whole different ecosystem, and so they had to adapt.
Yeah. And Ghostcrawler, people were pinging him on Twitter because they're like, "Oh, what did you think of this?" Because you're also a former WoW, and he was diplomatic, and he's like, like it's really hard to replicate that social magic because like the internet has changed. Like when people played, for many people, WoW was the first place they made their online friend for that generation. But now, currently, it's like you can like everyone is online. It's not just people that
It's not just the big nerds, it's everyone.
Right. Yeah. So it's everyone. And now, like, Twitter wasn't around back in the day. Discord wasn't around back in the day. Twitch wasn't around. So, like, WoW was this social magnet because it was this sort of prototype way of communicating with people online. But now all of our real lives are, like, plastered everywhere online through all of these different social media platforms. So it's like you don't exist in a bubble now. Like you use other platforms to play WoW, or you play different games with your friends, or like with Twitch, for example. So it's not necessarily WoW's fault. It's like just times changed. Like just what people were looking for in games changed. How people can socialize in games changed with new tools, new services available to them. So, I know that. Yeah, I know people will see the headline and be like, "Oh, Mike Morheim says that accessibility is bad and like early WoW is amazing," but it's more complicated than that.
Yeah,
It's,
it is.
Accessibility maybe changed how the social dynamic in WoW worked, but there are so many other factors that it could have like died anyway without a replacement. So maybe this changed some things, but it helped prolong the life of WoW. So,
it is a very interesting topic, though. I always love talking about it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I was going to say that I mentioned how the interviewer was a seasoned WoW player because the interviewer was like, hey, the hard part of playing WoW is not learning the game, but it's finding all the
Finding.
people to play with regularly. And over the years, you've gone from 40-man raids down to 20 because it's easier to find and organize and coordinate social groups. Because if you didn't have, it's easier to coordinate smaller groups. And if there wasn't accessibility options, it would be really difficult. Like,
Yep.
we all don't have a bunch of free time to do 40-man raids like the entire weekend, but maybe we can do a Mythic Plus with 5.
Yeah, and I mean, even with this accessibility, sometimes people still struggle to even find a Mythic
Yeah.
Plus group. And if it was any harder than it is today, most of those people would have quit. And I think there was one more thing I was going to comment. Okay, it disappeared.
Aw.
Yeah, no, forget about it. If I
Sorry.
remember, I'll mention it. No, I had too many things in my head that I forgot this other thing I wanted to say. But yeah, accessibility, a very interesting topic, a very hot debate in other ways. It's one of the main discussion points of classic versus retail as well. Um,
That's even so different as well because, with Classic WoW, like it's very popular on Twitch, obviously. There are, Discords, everyone's guild has a Discord, every class has a Discord. Um, like
that's
that
true.
just wasn't around in
No,
vanilla WoW.
no, that's true as well. Even the playability of what was isn't played the same way, and
Yeah, everyone just, instant clear, boom, because,
yep.
everyone knows the strats.
Mm-hmm.
I feel
Very
like
true.
in vanilla, everyone had more time because there was less social media platforms
Mm-hmm.
and like we didn't have as much consolidated knowledge. It was harder to find it. So
Mm-hmm.
things just like took longer because we didn't communicate out of game. Like everyone had to like set up and use these forums and
Yep.
then they had to talk using bad voice programs and things like mechanics or add-ons weren't as documented or refined. Guides weren't as refined.
Mm-hmm.
And the focus was more like we're going to beat this challenge like together and work on it together as like a social way to interact online. But now it's like, well, I can just hang out in a Discord with my friends and like I can log into WoW and then I can ask on Twitter for someone to like open their Animal Crossing island and then I can go off and play a different game. Like it's all very
Me.
like your circle of friends does not center around WoW.
Yes. Yes. It's very true, and it was actually along those lines that the thing that I wanted to say. I don't remember in what
Oh,
context
okay.
now, but basically the idea of our knowledge changing over these 15 years,
Mm-hmm.
because at the beginning it was exciting to level. It was exciting to get to know other people who are also learning to level. At this point, a lot of times, if you ask a question, people say, "Don't you know how to Google?" or "noob," or something. The culture
Yeah.
of learning has changed a lot because everyone is expected to know everything today, and with that, it also makes it harder for people to make new friends because if you're not very good, why would somebody spend their time playing with you? So it's
Right.
that makes it even harder to find a place where you feel like I belong here and I can make friends here. So it's yeah.
Especially if you're older and you don't have that much time to play and you have to say like what's more enjoyable. Like, WoW might be fun solo, but I'm scared if I try to find a group and this person is frustrated with me. Maybe I should play a different game in my spare time
Yeah.
or, like a different genre of game where I can find a team,
Yep.
easily or, maybe I'll play
Mm-hmm.
like a 20-minute match as opposed to, waiting in a queue for 20 minutes.
Yep. And imagine, spending an hour finding the perfect setup for a Mythic Plus, and then you wipe once, and then the healer or the tank or someone crucial to the team decides to leave. I mean, could even be a DPS, just decides to
Right.
leave. Then you've spent so much time on something which led to nothing, and then you have the option of switching off the game and playing something else. And if you would add server restrictions and a lot of other restrictions on top of it, it might have become even more difficult. If you're
Yeah.
somebody who, might be going to school or might be working, even if you're a bit older, and don't have that much time to invest, then you would most likely just not play the game at all.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of food for thought taking place, but I don't think Mike Morhaime is, knocking Blizzard, like don't take his words out of context. In other parts of the interview, they actually tried pressing him on like missteps such as Warcraft 3, and he was very diplomatic and saying that like, he there was mistakes made under him. He trusts the company to evolve in the direction that makes sense. So he's not bashing on current Blizzard. He's just explaining that like to evolve, sometimes you have to change what was good in the past just for, growth.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think that about wraps it up. If people have any questions for us about the show. I know it was like a smaller beta build than last week, but that's good. We can just like catch up on some of the smaller bits of news. And yeah.
Indeed.
Sorry, my cat was destroying the show.
It's okay. It's okay. It was a good
He's now
moment for people
asleep
to go get
behind
some
the
water.
laptop. Yeah.
Aw. Oh, wait. So I said people tell you to Google something. That's not true. They tell you to Wowhead something.
Aw, thank
I
you.
just realized. Actually, true. Like they tell you,
Well, that's
don't
like
you know how to
that's the
Wowhead?
same thing. Yeah.
Um.
Oh, there's a cat butt against the microphone. No, don't knock my water over, Bright Paw.
Aw.
I'll pick you up.
Yeah, I
That's
think I've been
random.
keeping decent track of the chat, and I think we have talked about most things that has been mentioned. I think we're good. I think it is time for a
Yes.
wrap up. And look at that, Brightpaw is ready. He's like, nice. Okay, you're stopping now? Finally.
Yes, pets for Bright Paw time. No
Yep.
questions, only pets.
I do always search Wowhead through Google. Yeah, I feel like Google is easier to open like fast, but then you always end up writing Wowhead in your question. So it's like something quest to Wowhead.
Like Google is also good if you want, videos, or when you don't want Wowhead, like when you actually want the Blizzard page. And then you're like, no, why is Wowhead coming up? I wanted to actually like buy the mount from Blizzard, not learn about the mount on Wowhead.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point actually. Does Perk know about the funny suggestion when you Google the Bee Raptor quest?
No. But we can't really what? I see the Wowhead as the top result, and then
It brings like a preview
videos.
answer thing at the very top of Google when I search it. I can show you a screenshot of it later.
Yeah, I think different people see different things based on your country. The thing I always found funny was leading up to BFA, like island expeditions. There was like an actual website called Island Expeditions, I think to some like Caribbean island. So they
Oh
were
my
probably
God.
getting a lot of confusing WoW players hitting up that page.
That's funny. And especially now in times of the pandemic. Like, no, I don't want to travel. This is not the island
Right.
expedition I'm looking for.
Yep.
But
God, he's
yeah,
being so
I think Brightpaw wants to steal you, and it is time for a wrap. We've gone through all the things that we wanted to talk about, plus a little bit more. That's why in those moments, sometimes when I manually add something, hopefully they don't feel too clumsy or take too long or
Oh,
anything.
it's awesome. Yeah.
We try to sometimes just live update since it is a live stream, so why not? Just drag things
Yeah.
in and show them to you. And yeah, well, we'll be back next week, same time. So Thursday evening and or Thursday afternoon if you're NA, with whatever has gone up between now and then. And maybe in that
Yep.
time you'll also witness some data mining from Stefan. If you do, say nice things to him.
Yeah, data mining dad.
Yes, data mining dad. Be very nice to him. And yeah, high five time.
Yep, you have to do the sound because
Yep, I'll do a
wait,
snap.
I think I can do it. Oh, yeah,
I'll do a
you can
snap.
do the
I'll
snap.
do a snap.
Okay. 3, 2, 1.
Yeah. Snap high five.
Yay. You want to wave your paw, bright paw? Say goodbye to
Social
everyone.
distancing, virtual high fives. Very, very
He's saying
safe.
goodbye.
Oh,
Yes,
saying
he's
goodbye
waving.
as well. See y'all next week. Thank you guys very much for supporting, using Wowhead, and being awesome. Being an awesome community.
Yep. See you next week.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.
Very good.
There.